Alright, Diablo 4 players, so let's talk about it. Why is Diablo 4 behind other modern action RPGs? Because remember, this is supposed to be a 10-year game, and I want to say that the fatigue is definitely real. I've been looking at a lot of your guys' feedback and comments via the Path of Exile 2 videos as well as the Diablo videos. A lot of times, I'll be real, like I said, I do read your guys' comments, and when I upload Diablo 4 content, sometimes the Path of Exile players or even the Diablo players are like, I cannot go back to the next season. I see you guys, so I wanted to go ahead and first off say I enjoy both the games. I will continue to play both of the games, and I think that there are some goods and bad points on both of the games, but I really wanted to highlight why Diablo 4 just feels like it's falling kind of behind the other modern action RPGs, and try to give Blizzard some ideas to go ahead and kind of address or fix them, or just announce that they're looking into that. We hear you, and I think that that's better than just them saying nothing, because they've already been talking about leaderboards as well as a loot filter that players have definitely been wanting for some time, but I think that there are way more things to talk about. But I also want to go ahead and start off this video by letting you guys know that there is someone else that is working on the game. He is making a return to the Diablo franchise. That is John Yang over here. So basically, we've got someone else working on the team, and I think that that is great. I want to see new people return to the game, ideally Diablo 2 devs, but at the end of the day, as long as there's new hands and new eyes on this game, I think that that's what's going to keep the game refreshing. Remember, this game is supposed to be a 10-year game, and I want to say I've definitely felt fatigued by kind of like the reintroduction of mechanics when it's a new season. I kind of want a new season, not like, well, we're going to buff up the Infernal Hordes. I see that as, well, that could be like a cool sideline update, but I want a new season mechanic for a new season. And I think that the Infernal Hordes, when they first came out, was a cool update. I liked them. They were awesome. And I think that branching upon them should be something that is seen as, we're going to be updating the Infernal Hordes alongside this new season, like as an update, right? Versus the main meat of a season. And while there is some other things that they're adding in, I want to say that there are still stuff I want to talk about over here. So I'm going to be comparing it to other games, mainly, honestly, Path of Exile, because again, that's like the new hot action RPG, and that is something that I'm going to be comparing it to. And I want to say that the first thing I want to start off with is like the biggest update that PoE got was the offline trade. This is a huge deal with the game, and the reason why is it keeps me personally coming back. When I list up a whole bunch of items in the marketplace and I go to sleep, the first thing I want to do when I wake up is what's sold, right? And this happens with other games too. You could do it with Last Epoch, Torchlight Infinite. You list stuff and then you want to hop back into log in, right? It's not like a daily login reward, but it keeps the players coming back, which is kind of an issue that I see with Path of Exile that doesn't necessarily translate to Diablo as well. And I'm going to use Steam charts because it's only way we can numerically see kind of like the retention rate on players. And I know that this gets brought up all the time, that this is only one website. Sure, it doesn't count console. Sure, it's not counting the Battle.net app. But I'm just looking at like about the percentage of players that come back. And with Path of Exile, I see the retention rate just being a lot stronger over the course of time. I know it doesn't count Battle.net app, but I'm just looking at like 1 month later, kind of what the numbers are looking like for both of these games on a more consistent basis. I would say Path of Exile has a lot better progression in terms of like making your character feel more and more powerful. Where Diablo, yeah, you can get more and more powerful by leveling up the glyphs, but how fun is it to see that your build goes up by 0.1% every single time that you do it? Whereas Path of Exile, you can get items like Headhunter, you can get crazy items that really take your build to the next level. And I'm not saying to have super rare items in Diablo that are kind of unachievable by your average player, but just things where like in the endgame you could really feel that sense of progression a little bit stronger than you can feel with the current state of Diablo 4. And the thing is that I was also thinking about what Blizzard said themselves in the campfire chat. And that had to do with only 10% of the players actually reaching the Tormented 4 difficulty, which is something that I'm thinking like, well, maybe this game isn't really designed for the grinders, right? Those people that like to play the game for a very long time. But I still think that retention rate still correlates to the people that come back to your game and again and again. But again, when there's only 10% of the players even making it Tormented 4, I think that could be an issue. I remember seeing the Xbox achievement for just completing the campaign was under 4%. Someone posted it over on Reddit a while ago, and I was really blown away that only 4% of the, there's 4 point something percent have actually completed the campaign. So that's not even touching upon so many other players that don't even make it to, let's say, even Tormented 1. So I've always thought maybe that the game is too hard. I see Diablo 4 as a really good casual action RPG for the first time you can hop in, whereas Path of Exile, let's be real, it's like really hard. You gotta follow a guide and stuff. but it really comes down to maybe that they need to make the game easier. Maybe that's their goal. Because again, if anyone's looking at this from a developer standpoint, if 5% of players don't even complete your campaign, then that could be an issue where maybe the game is too hard, or maybe it's just not a game that is for those players. Because I think that everyone should be able to complete the campaign for Diablo. I think it's got a good narrative. I actually think the storyline and the way that they deliver it with the cutscenes and stuff is actually well done, and it's much better than Path of Exile's campaign in terms of a story, right? Versus Path of Exile, you gotta sit there, wait for the NPC to talk. It feels more like a legacy game made back in like the year 2000s, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just saying that I think more people could be able to complete the campaign. At least that's the way I see it. But I also feel like there's definitely a lack of direction of who this game is for, because the way I see it, and like the way I look at the comments, especially when it comes to the mythic items, man, people complain about that all the time. But I want to say, for the 30 hours a day players, I don't feel like there's really much to do after you get your mythics, right? Like, yeah, you could say, well, let me go ahead and grind out more and more mythics, right? And I could get, triple, quadruple GA mythics. And that feels unrealistic for most people. I want to say your average player, even the people that play 30 hours a day, are not like, man, I cannot wait to go ahead and grind for my 4 GA Harlequin. Like, it's just something that most people don't do. I don't even know if there's anyone out there that really does it for the most part. There might be like one player, and I don't think video game devs should be, trying to cater towards that like top 0.001% of a player. It's just kind of pointless, right? And I also think that getting 3 to 4 greater affix items is only really achievable via trade. It's not like someone hops in and is like, okay, my build's already good, I can already hit 100. My next goal is to 4GA every single thing. It just doesn't seem, again, realistic for most people, even the heavy grinders, especially also hitting Paragon 300. I feel like this is something where they can maybe loosen up the ropes on the XP. I want to say maybe you can make getting Paragon from 299 to 300 the same rate, but make your average players able to grind out a certain amount of Paragons, because a lot of people definitely feel fatigued, and I see in the comments where people just tap out at Paragon 200. They're like, dude, I'm done. There's like no point. There's nothing to do. There's nothing new. There's nothing that is gated by specifically hitting Paragon 300, right? And I'm not saying that we should have content that's only available for Paragon 300. What I'm saying is, I think the grind is a little bit too long, especially because you look at the game where if this is supposed to be a casual game and people reset their progress, and I see this all the time where people are commenting and they're like, what do you mean I have to restart my character when a new season from level 1? I can't play my old character? Why can't I just play on the Eternal and use the new stuff? Well, the new stuff doesn't work because you can't get the new Chaos Uniques unless you play the new season. And then they're like, I don't want to play. So I see that a lot, and I think that because it's a very casual game, you get a lot of players that are kind of confused on that. There's a disconnect. They're like, why can't I use my, old stuff from the previous season? So maybe to also think about the Eternal players, maybe that they can keep their stuff, because I see this being a huge gap with season 10 specifically, and that is because in season 10 you're going to lose half of your gear, by the way, at the end of the season. All of your Chaos Uniques, which is in pretty much half of your inventory, all of that gets deleted. And when people hear this, they're like, dude, I don't want to play this season. Why would I want to grind out on all my gear to have it just deleted? And I totally get that, but I also only play seasons, and I play action RPGs, and a lot of people that are going in for the first time, this is too much of a, whoa, I don't want to do this. So I can definitely, relate to that. If I was to, not play on this, the game for an extended period of time, I can understand, like, you just grinded to get your gear. Why would you want to, like, lose all of it, right? But I see this all the time again, where casuals complain getting one mythic. They're like, I can never get a mythic. And the reason why is they probably don't watch video guides to like how to get a mythic, because they expect to just play the game and it's going to drop. It's going to drop. But it really isn't going to drop unless you do those, tormented bosses in basically rota runs, where they have even said, Blizzard themselves in their campfire, Colin said, we don't want you to chain farm bosses. But there is no way to get these mythics without chain farming the bosses. There is technically the sparks that you can get, which do help out. I will say that the runes definitely made things a lot easier when they made it so you can get the runes off of doing some other forms of content. They made the rune drops a little bit better, especially with the Undercity. But if only 10% of players make it to T4, maybe you can loosen up on the mythics, especially because people find these to be super, super rare, and they don't want to refarm the mythic that they felt like was almost impossible to achieve one, when a lot of builds need multiple. But honestly, in Season 10, I want to say that there's some light at the end of the tunnel with this, and that is because you get a bunch of ways to acquire a bunch of items that are in the Chaos Unique slot, and you don't really need Mythics on a lot of builds in the new season. But also, going back to like, if only 10% of players even make to Endgame, should they even make the game like easier, or should they even make content for those people that play 30 hours a day? And the way I personally see it, and I'm curious to know how you guys feel about this, is that the people that play your game consecutively, they're the ones in Torment 4. They're the ones that come back every single season, right? They're the ones buying the Battle Pass. At least that's my point of view. I just don't get it if there are players out there, I don't know if there are, that buy the Battle Pass and can't not even hit T4. And I think the people that will come back and spend your money, those are the Tormented 4 players. So maybe it's better to at least cater towards giving those top 10% of players enough content, because at the end of the day, if people aren't buying the Battle Pass, they have to fund the season somehow, right? You know, people aren't going to the new season going, all right, new season started, let me buy a new copy of Diablo 4. So I want to say you may want to cater towards those players more that actually come back to actually complete your season journey, and again, invest in the Battle Pass for those players to stick around versus the people that hop in, play 10 minutes and like, okay, I'm done. Like, I just don't get that only 10% of people even make it to T4. This is a pretty crazy number to me personally. If you were to say only 10% of people make it to Pit 100, I would say, okay, that's fine. It's not like you need to. But Tormented 4 is kind of like where the content really is, right? So maybe they could either make the game easier, and I'm kind of asking this as a question. Do you guys think they need to make the game easier? Because would it even make sense from an investor standpoint to even make content for those top 10%? Unless, again, those are the ones buying Battle Pass. Again, I'm just curious to know what you guys think of that. Another thing I wanted to mention is the game fatigue as Pit as the only form to upgrade glyphs and higher end content. They could have made the Infernal Horde scale to have like infinite waves or other forms of ways to upgrade glyphs. I just really am so over the Pit. I like the Pit, but I don't want it to be the only way that I can see how strong my build is. Maybe you could have leaderboards for, again, endless waves in this mode, because again, you could start stacking it. This was such a big brain idea that they could have just made these waves endless and then had a leaderboard to see who can push the highest. This is another like measuring stick. This is another way for people to compete without having like a leaderboard. I mean, you could have a leaderboard, what's the highest pit clear, right? And then you could also have a highest leaderboard, what's the highest amount of waves that has been done, right? That was an easy way for you guys to have people have competition in the game. And then I put like a 2B section, not to be confused with the anime girl, the other video game. But fatigue in the game is that there is only about 5-ish core skills, and like I'd say only 2 to 3 of them are kind of viable to push into the Pit 100. Although there's going to be a lot more builds, honestly, with these Chaos Uniques, because I think Season 10 is shaping to be one of the best Diablo seasons. But again, it still feels farther behind when you complain or when you compare it to the current state of the game with Path of Exile. I'm going to mention this, and I'm going to use this kind of as an example with like the builds right now in the game when it comes down to like your powers, right? Most of it is you pick one of these new like chaos perks that does kind of change up your build. These are good. Awesome job, Blizzard. However, these other like yellow nodes, it's just like X damage, X damage, X damage. That's all people really go to in terms of like choosing which one is the best. Not pick the highest number, right? That's kind of just the idea. But I think that the solution, if you want to make your games as a service, I think new skills in the game would be way better. And instead of making like the powers like something that would activate, I think that making them a skill, like if you guys remember Season 8, how like you would have these like boss powers that would activate, and I think that's a really cool idea. But then like they just removed it. Now I'm saying that it would be cool to have like instead of powers, we just get new skills and we could play with them. And I think that if they made like, let's say 4 to 8 new skills that all classes can use, and same thing with like the uniques, right, in the game. They keep on making like one new aspect and then like one new unique for a certain character. Sometimes it's just a numbers game, right? It's like, okay, Flurry deals X 100 damage, that's the new unique. But it doesn't really change up the gameplay. It's the same thing, right? I know it attacks faster, but this is just a new numerical knob that we're swapping for a brand new unique. I think these uniques should be unique instead of just an X number, right? And I know that that kind of tends to let a build actually be good, but I'm also thinking that instead of 1 to 2 new items per class, we just create like 8 to 12 brand new generic items that everyone can use. And I want to go ahead and kind of compare it to PoE 2 right now using PoE 2 DB. So like if we look at like the new Path of Exile League, they got 20 new uniques and all the characters and all the classes can run these. That's already pretty big. And then they're like, here's like 40 new like skill gems, right? These are all the lineage ones. Some of these are super OP and super amazing and can completely completely change up a build or a way to play the game, and I like that. But when you look at Diablo, it's like, okay, well, we get 1 or 2 new things, and one of them is like an X damage for a skill that is like so far behind that you bump it up from a D tier to maybe C tier. That happens a lot, I would say, with Diablo. And then there's some outliers like Ophidian Iris that's like, okay, here's like 1000x more damage, and then, okay, Hydra's cool because it just gets 1000x damage. So I would say having generic uniques just kind of plug in, and maybe like you can just make these actually feel unique versus a number. And I feel like that's one thing that keeps it far behind. Even if any of you guys played the new last Epoch League, there's some really cool uniques in there. So I want to say that it feels farther behind because these uniques in the game that get reintroduced into the game are recycled, because it's just taking a number and just make it go up until it does enough damage to do pit 100, right? So I want to say that there could be more creativity in that area. I've already mentioned that Paragon takes way too long, and I think that it's not worth the upgrade. And I think that one thing that needs to be touched upon for any action RPG in terms of your play session is to feel like your time is valued. When I play Path of Exile, especially towards the end game, and I'm like at maps, I can still like play the game like, okay, cool, I got a Divine to drop, I can maybe make some other build, I could upgrade this. But in Diablo, I just feel like grinding a Paragon 300 is like, it's like some imaginary fairy number that I don't really care about, other than like, oh, I get 300 and then next season I do it all again. I'm not really a fan of that. I also feel like the crafting system, oh my gosh, if you compare it to PoE in the current state of the game, Path of Exile knocked the ball out of the park with the brand new system with the Abyssal crafting. It's awesome. And I would say like Temper Masterworking only just feels very weak. And, you know, I actually think this, the results of Tempering Masterworking, when it first got introduced in Season 4, was awesome. It was so cool that we can get like these skills to activate twice, and I can really kind of work on my item. But it never fully felt like it was like a really awesome system that like kind of evolved as the game was going on. It kind of felt like Slot Machine now, oh, got the wrong thing again. Especially on the Masterwork. Gosh, I could tell you so many people have been complaining about it. But there is maybe some light at the end of the tunnel with this one. But in terms of like in general with the crafting, Diablo 2 had way better crafting than Diablo 4, and I think that we really should look at crafting and the ways that people can kind of upgrade their items and have a longer sense of progression. And I'm not saying make it longer by making the materials so much longer to farm. I'm saying that it just doesn't feel like it's worth it, and it ties into, again, it just doesn't feel like my time is valued in the game, and I think that that's a really, really big problem. And then also, this is an issue where, like, Diablo is hot for like a week. Path of Exile is hot for like 3-4 weeks, I would say, in terms of a content creator, because you can see the numbers definitely just absolutely just dip down. And that's kind of normal, but I would say Diablo dips off a lot faster in terms of like retention rate with players, definitely, than Path of Exile. And again, I'm not saying slow down the game, I'm just saying make other areas and other forms of content to keep people interested in your game. I think that the best way to keep people infinitely entertained is leaderboards, as well as some sort of form of PvP. I don't know why Diablo Immortal still has the only form of like kind of structured PvP. And I know that it might be really hard to balance, but I really think that to keep people in the game, you need the leaderboards. You really need to have that PvP so people can get dunked on by one build and they're like, oh my gosh, I play a Barb. That Druid just wrecked me. I want to go ahead and play Druid. It allows people to kind of, again, put their build up to the test versus, again, just this pit number that, like, at some point, maybe someone's done a pit 150. I've done a pit 150, and I never really cared to go push and do it again. Like, it's not something that really seems as entertaining. But if there was a leaderboard, or if there was PvP, I think people would be more interested in coming back to the game again and again. And then also, this is another thing that another content creator, another Diablo partner, Rex, shouts to him, mentioned, is that there doesn't really feel like there's anything big to drop in the game. And I think that like, the Mythics are supposed to be this mega ultra rare thing, and before they were so rare that, like, no one got them, and then now with the Mythics, it's like, okay, I finally got my Mythic, I can make my build. Like, it doesn't feel good to get them anymore. At least that's how I feel. Now, I don't know if they should really make an item that's super, super, super rare. Maybe they can make a super, super rare skin that can drop, that can maybe be, like, a good middle ground, so it's not like it's going to correlate to, like, if you don't have this item, you don't run the build. But then if you look at the game's current state, there are a lot of, like, infinite teleport builds where if you don't have the greater affix on cooldown reduction to Harlequin with triple masterwork, it just doesn't feel very fun. So I can get that there could be some discrepancy, but I'm curious to know, what do you guys think of it? Does Diablo 4 need more rare chase items like Diablo 2 had, right? Diablo 2 has very, very rare chase items, but Diablo 2 is also, it has, like, I would say, better trade than the current system, whereas Diablo, both of them, you gotta go to third-party websites. But also, I feel like rework fatigue in the game. Again, last season was like, okay, we get Nightmare Dungeons as new forms of content. We did get a new boss, but the new boss was like the campaign campaign boss. It's like, okay, do we expect to get like a new Lilith as a new boss or something? I think people want to see a new boss that feels very, very brand new. I mean, that was the new boss right there. Did I even see him? No, I blinked one time and he was gone. So maybe they can make the bosses more challenging, but at the end of the day, I want to say that there could be something to kind of rework and do as kind of a sideline thing, but not as the new season mechanic. Again, that's the reason why I think a lot of people feel like fatigued with this whole powers and perk system is that people see this and they're like, well, okay, whatever. Again, it just translates to more X damage, and that's why I feel like the game feels further behind comparing to other games where their uniques do so much more in the game. It's not just a damage numbers, or like you can get more crit, or like you can apply vulnerability. Like it's just kind of some sort of hoops and jumps that you've already jumped through, and it's like, okay, well now how can I get 100% crit in my build? How can I apply vulnerability? You do have those options. The Chaos Uniques, honestly, they are the coolest thing ever that we've gotten, so I want to say thumbs up to Blizzard for that. But they're still just a rework of just, okay, you can equip an item slot in another one. It is kind of big brain the first time you see it. But I want to say after the more that you play, kind of becomes, well, let's just fit Banished Talisman, Crown of Lucian, Fist of Fate to get the highest X number, right? And that it does incorporate some new builds that are impossible that you couldn't do with like Druid, with like the Crone Staff, and like, you know, running things like the Tempest Roar in other slots, so you can still run this. It is really cool though. I will give them some credit there, but that's the kind of stuff I want to see in itemization every single season, but the main problem is all of it is going away, and that makes me feel very sad. And that's where the fatigue comes in. It's like, okay, I get this new power, I level it up, and then people are like, oh, dude, I go to Eternal, and I lose everything, right? For those people that level up the Abattoir of Zir, right, that insane, crazy glyph, and then it's like, oh, it gets deleted. And I want to say that moving into the Eternal realm, one smart solution in the future would be just let people keep their stuff, man. Like, why do we have to, like, delete everything? Let Eternal have the ability to be eternal. Like, your items that you got can be eternal. They don't have to be like, oh, I farmed for thousands of hours or hundreds of hours this season and I lose. And I feel like this season in particular is going to make a lot of players upset, because again, especially the new players that don't understand, like, yeah, the season stuff goes away and you just lose. Like, you go to your inventory and you're like, well, my armor's gone, my chest piece is gone, my gloves, my pants, my boots, my whole character's like dead. Like, why would I want to invest my time into it? Again, it makes the player's time feel less valued. But I was also thinking about, like, what could be other, like, cool ideas to be put in here that could really help out. I'm thinking, like, set items, Kanai's Cube, Horadric Cube. What could keep people in longer? I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? And again, I'm not asking for slower, like, to slow down the game. And I know that leaderboards are coming, and I know this is something that, you know, could be touched upon, but I don't know why it would be so difficult to just, like, have, like, the Hordes mode, which is the new form of content. Why can't that new mode be like another infinite wave mode, so it actually feels new, and then you could start stacking more and more difficult modifiers? Therefore, your character is going to need to get tankier and tankier, not just like a numbers game where we need the DPS to be able to do whatever pit tier, right? I want to say that would probably be something really cool if we can infinitely go into the Infernal Hordes mode, and then there is a leaderboard with that. And it'd be even cooler, like, if you want to take this a step further, is that, like, when you go in, you could go in with a team and there's another team and you have to battle against them, and you could see which team pushes higher, and the team that fails, they get, you know, they get the rewards to move on, but the team that wins, they get to go on and face off against another team. So it's like PvEVP, if that kind of makes sense. Again, I think those sort of ideas would really keep people into the game, and that would actually encourage clan support, which is something that I've always wanted Diablo 4 to do. Like Diablo Immortal, which is the mobile game, and, you know, I got no hate with mobile games, but I'm just saying I want the same stuff that's in the mobile game to just throw it in there in Diablo 4, man. Why can't we have it in both games? That way when people play the mobile game, they're like, oh, Diablo 4, cool, there's clan stuff, there's a clan stash and stuff. I think that having clan support would be really good. Again, have one clan battle against another clan, and then you have the kind of like a tree, you know, PvP system where you're not like directly doing PvP with the other players, like battling them, although I want that. I'm saying that you could battle against them in the Infernal Hordes, and whatever team wins gets to push on to the next you know, team, and then you get some sort of ladder points, and then at the very end, maybe there's mythics that shoot out or something, maybe really rare cosmetics, or, you know, different titles. I don't know, something to encourage people to play with you know, their clanmates. Anyways, I know this is a long video, but I just felt like there's just so many areas in progression when it comes down to like a live service, you know, open world MMO game with clan support, where we still like, what can you do in a clan in Diablo 4? And that's one of the biggest areas that just feels like it's so far behind. There's like no clan activities. There's nothing that's special with the clan, and I want to say Also, again, all the items, everything in the video. But anyways, let me know, guys, where do you feel like Diablo really lacks in terms of falling behind? Because I really feel like it's so far behind in the itemization, the crafting, as well as like the community stuff that you can do in the game. But anyways, that's my 2 cents. Let me know, guys, what you think about it. And even though, I'll be honest, I complain a lot in this video, I'm honestly thinking that Season 10 will be one of the best seasons that Diablo has. This is one of the coolest seasons if you are a theory crafter in the game to do more wacky things. And hopefully with the new update that we're getting on a campfire chat very soon, we're going to see even more crazy things. My fingers crossed, though, things don't get like absolutely destroyed and nerfed to the point where like they're not good anymore. But we'll wait and see. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you gamers in the next video. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on any of the stuff that we talked about down below.